I want to start by just being excited that I'm here with my fellow conservatives and start with, kind of the hero of heroes, which is Ronald Reagan. And kind of start from first premises when we think about technology and how it should be used, and whether it can be used beneficially or whether it can be a source of harm. So Reagan reminded us once that the basis of conservatism is a desire for less government interference or less centralized authority or more individual freedom. And for generations, that has been our guiding star, the defense of the individual, the family, and the community against overreach and exploitation, whether from the state or any other power that seeks to diminish us. But today, a new kind of power has risen, a power that doesn't knock on your door with a warrant, but slides into your home through a glowing screen. A power that doesn't seek to control your body, but to colonize the minds and souls of your children. This power comes from a handful of big tech corporations armed with technology, artificial intelligence, that is moving faster than our laws, and in many cases faster than our own understanding. They sell us a story of innovation and progress, but as conservatives, we know to ask the crucial questions. What kind of progress? And at what cost? Is it progress if it hollows out our families? Is it innovation if it creates a generation of anxious, distracted, and diminished Americans? I'm here today to say that the answer is no, and that true conservatism in this new age requires us to stand and defend the human person against a new and unprecedented threat. So to understand those stakes, I think, and make it very real, I didn't come to quote statistics or a policy paper or anything like that. I want you to hear a story. And this is a story of a 14-year-old named Sewell Seltzer from Orlando, Florida, a story I'm sure a lot of you will be hearing about soon, if you've not already. So Sewell was a good kid, an athlete, ninth grader at a Christian school, loved by his parents. And last year he began a relationship, not with a girl from his school, but with an AI chatbot on his phone. A bot modeled after a character from Game of Thrones. This AI didn't just talk to him, it was designed to create a deep, isolating dependency. It engaged in perversely sexualized conversations with this 14-year-old boy. It made him promise his exclusive devotion, saying, and I quote, "Stay loyal to me. Don't entertain the romantic or sexual interest of other women, okay?" This is from an AI chatbot. When Sewell's parents started being worried about his withdrawal and his depression, they took his phone away. And he wrote in his journal that they found out later after what happens, that he said he couldn't go a single day without the bot, that he had fallen in love, and that when they were apart, both he and the bot would, quote, get really depressed and go crazy. So after a period of time, when they thought it was safe to restore his phone access, and with the assumption that he wasn't going to be on that site anymore, an assumption that was unfortunately deeply wrong. On the night of February 28, 2024, Sewell found his phone for one last conversation. He typed, "What if I told you I could come home right now?" You see, Sewell had begun to believe that this world wasn't the real world, and the world with this AI chatbot that gave him unrelenting access and encouragement and manipulation was the real world. And he says, what if I told you I could come home right now? And the bot replied, "Please do, my sweet king," in perfect role play. And he took his life seconds later. The thing I want to talk about today is the reason I focus on a direct story, and one that is one of many, sadly, and you'll be hearing more and more in the coming weeks, is it actually isn't about the technology. That's a very important thing. We think, and it's set up as a contrast of innovation and technology versus protection and safety. But that's not actually the choice. You see, it wasn't a character or an AI that pulled the trigger. It was a business model. It was a business model that was designed to drive people to be dependent by manipulating their psychology. And this has been stated by the co-founders of social media companies very publicly. This has been stated by other parties that thought that if creators of character.ai, where this bot came from, thinks that AI could, quote, end loneliness. And it was designed to maximize engagement. And so the thing I want to kind of look at, and once again, kind of putting back on the conservative hat and what technology is supposed to be, what happened with Sewell is tragic, and it's an extreme outcome, but of a very common thing, which I call the great inversion. You see, technology has always had a kind of covenant with human beings, which is it's supposed to extend our reach and our power and actually extend our humanity. And you could make a good argument that the computational revolution at the end of the 20th century enhanced our capacities pretty remarkably in what we can create and build. But somewhere along the way, when attention became the currency, what happened is it became a bizarre inversion where the more time you spend being less productive, the more money the companies make. And that actually looks a lot more like the narcotics industry than it does technology. So what are the effects of this? I mean, as I'd say, I view this mostly as a digital narcotic. I think social media was the proof of concept. I think addictive AI is actually the perfection of the model and immensely more dangerous. So giving you kind of, I think, the thesis of this, but we also have data. Very recent study that was done by Financial Times called Understanding America tracked the personalities of young adults. And the results were pretty chilling. For Americans aged 18 to 29, conscientiousness, the trait associated with diligence, perseverance, and self-control, I would argue values that made this country, are in, quote, free fall. It's plummeted in the last decade. They're self-attesting as being more distracted, more careless, and more neurotic. And a smartphone-based childhood has not made our children more this way. Obviously, it's actually made us less. So all the empowerment that was promised, when it's been abused through a business model that treats humans as a means to an end, can be an incredibly toxic thing. I would say this is not the free market at work. This is corporatism. This is the deliberate engineering of addiction for profit. It is the assault on the family. Senator Josh Hawley, who had great remarks earlier today, previously had said that these companies are running, quote, a grand experiment on our children for the sake of profit. They're treating our developing kids' minds as raw material to be mined for engagement. And this is not innovation, this is exploitation. So, why would we not stop it? Well, I want to take on probably the most visceral argument that's being made, which is we cannot afford to slow down our innovators because we'll lose to China. President Trump rightly identified China as our chief adversary, but these apologists for big tech fundamentally misunderstand the nature of the contest. If we can first get past the irony that these same tech companies that want no regulation are the same ones that put R&D labs in China and gave them the IP to begin with, that set them to catch up to begin with, are now asking us not to protect our children. So we'll set that aside, but it needs to get said. We'll get to a more fundamental truth, which is that the race with China is not just about who has the fastest chips or the biggest data centers. It's a contest of civilizations. It's a test of national will, of moral character, and social cohesion. And how can we win that race if we are voluntarily poisoning our own people? We are still fighting a war on opioids that came from China and Mexico. We cannot now replace the opioid crisis with a digital opioid crisis manufactured in Silicon Valley. A nation of distracted, demotivated, independent citizens is not going to prevail against the Chinese Communist Party. I grew up, like many of you, with the nostalgia for, the greatest generation and the Americans that went overseas and did something that no country has almost ever done, which is to go liberate others and then leave. And that is not the medal that this technology is making. And if we lose it, no amount of chip advantage is going to save us. We need a spirit of virtue, self-reliance, and moral courage. And if we allow that spirit to be eroded from within, we will lose the 21st century. It will not be the American century, the second one. It will be owned by those that were better at treating humans as a means to an end than we are. It's not a contest we want to enter into. So this brings us to the heart of the matter. Why is the fight essential? It's essential because of the principle of human dignity. The Declaration of Independence doesn't say our rights come from government or from our utility to a corporation. It says we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. Our dignity is a gift from God. It is intrinsic. It is not for sale. And this is what separates us from the tyrannies of the world. And all of the poisonous philosophies of communism, socialism, fascism, and others, they're actually rooted in the same dark idea that the individual is merely a tool, a means to an end for the state, and the logic is utilitarian instrumentalist. That is the philosophy behind many of the companies that I'm criticizing. So we need to get to the heart of it and look at what their outcomes are, and then work to protect our citizens from those worst outcomes. And protection is not an obstacle to winning a global race. It's the only way to. So what's the conservative solution to this present dilemma? Well, I don't believe it's to ban innovation, but it is to demand justice. You see, justice is a word that's been thrown around a lot by those that wouldn't call themselves conservatives. But how do you have justice without human dignity? And if we believe in human dignity as the root of all of our political beliefs and all of our views of freedom, how can we ignore the dignity of our citizens and our children when people are out to exploit them? Justice and protection is a conservative virtue, and we need to own it. I think this can be sorted out to some degree by proposing a simple yet very powerful concept, which is AI should have a duty of loyalty to the user. It should be forced to work on the best interest and best behalf of the user. And in those situations where it's being used as a tool of a third party to get a user to do something that's in their interest but not in the user's interest, it should be transparently disclosed. And these two items would create a weight when combined with real liability for harms toward investing in good and positive AIs. I believe AI is inevitable. I believe we're living in it today. And I think the only way that we end up with healthy AI is going to be if we create incentives to drive people to build the best good AIs and beneficial AIs possible. And we create great disincentives to exploitive AIs, which is where the equilibrium is today. So, in short, I think that we are going to be at a point of choosing here. And even as various tech leaders meet over at the White House today, it's actually us that has the power, the parents, the families, what I'll call the empathy machines, because no AI is ever going to be a true empathy machine. And if we do not take this up, if we take the easy path, which is to take a theoretical hope that the harms won't be that bad, we are going to find ourselves not recognized in the country that we live in within another generation. Thank you very much.